on this Friday. So one of the things that I had our inner circle members do prior to the new year was to write themselves a New Year letter. And so if you have no idea what I'm talking about, let me give you a little bit of background. So about 4 to 5 years ago, I was really stuck just as a person, as a man. I was about to be a father. I was really struggling. Like I didn't know like what to do. And so one of my therapists had challenged me to do what she called a New Year's letter. And what the challenge is, or what the assignment is for you to write yourself a letter on December 31st, except post dated a year from now. And so you're writing to yourself as if, like, let's just say today is January 8th, 2021. I would be writing myself a letter from January 8th, 2022, talking to me in the past tense. And so the way that would function would be like, yo, Des, I am so happy for you, man. Congratulations on all your success in 2021. These are the things to which why I think that you're successful. And what it ends up doing is it ends up being a goal setting exercise, and one that I've really been revamping and redoing each and every year for the past 5 years, and something that I've actually taken into my coaching practice with our inner circle members to help them seek fulfillment and to help them seek what they need out of their lives in the next year in order to feel successful, in order to feel like they're stepping out more authentically to who they believe that they are. And so we had this group call right before the new year. So I challenged all of them to write them their New Year's letters. And my gosh, I'm floored with one, the trust that they have in me, but two, the courage that they have to really step into vulnerability and to really step into like what they actually want to see out of their lives. Because each and every one of them can tell you the same thing. They have stepped in thinking like, okay, Des, I just want to change my body composition. If I lose the weight, then I'm going to be happier. But as they started to go through this process, they started to understand that it's not so much about the weight. It's not the weight on the scale, although it might be a huge determinant of whether they feel success or not. But it's not the weight on the scale. It's how they interact with stress. It's how they interact with happiness. It's how they interact when the world, just like it is right now, is really hard to live in, right? And so it's how they interact with those things and how they interact with self-care, how they interact with eating well, how they interact with exercising, how they interact with a new bedtime routine. So there's a lot that they're trying to interact with. And what I am really pushing them to do is not only to try to help them to develop high reward habits, so habits that provide a larger amount of reward so that you want to keep doing them, but also to help them understand that the way that they live their lives, it's okay to be imperfect, but damn it, they have to be consistent. Okay. And so we did that letter, and like I'm going through them. I just ran through 3 of our inner circle members today. I ran through their letter, and what I've been doing is looking at key features and either challenging them to be a bit more detailed and then starting to reverse engineer from there. And so what I wanted to do today was actually to give a little bit of insight off of the letter that I wrote to myself a year from now. And the whole point behind this too, the really cool thing is like, after you get your goals really solid, after you get your messaging really solid, you put it in an envelope and you put it away, and you don't open it up until December 31st, 2021. Okay. And that's the whole point behind it, because what you're looking to do is to get some clarity as to like your why. And you've heard this before, one really great way for you to get better in how you interact with health is to really understand your why. Because a lot of us kind of step in thinking that like, okay, well, I want to gain muscle, or I want to lose weight, I want to lose body fat, I want to look good naked. Okay, like all of those 100% are really big things, and they are things that I really love to support and to motivate. But there are going to be times where you're not going to feel as successful. Any of our inner circle members can tell you that right now. There are weeks and sometimes months where you're like, God damn, like I'm just not feeling this. Like I don't know what's wrong with me. You're going to have those ebbs and flows when we talk about things from a goal perspective, because willpower goes up and it goes down. I think you've heard me say this before. Motivation is a huge lie. What it really has a lot more to do with is your ability to limit decision fatigue and to increase your willpower. All right. And so what that sounds like, if you're coming home after a 8-hour workday and you're wondering yourself, like, why the hell can't I go to the gym? Why can't I just go on my walk when I get home? Well, throughout the day, you've just made a bunch of decisions. And so whether to go to the gym or to go in your garage gym or to go for that walk, that's another decision that you're piling on there. So you're not lazy, you're just fatigued. All right. So it kind of functions in a lot of that way. And so what I wanted to do today was to describe a little bit about my letter, a little bit about my process, and what is meant for me at least, for this to be so fruitful, and a huge reason why I have our inner circle members doing the same thing, because I'm trying to navigate their why, and I'm trying to help them navigate what they need in order to be successful. Because the only way that they fail is if they quit. And it's the same thing with you. You might be someone who is constantly quitting on themselves. And what I really want to be empathic towards and help you to understand is like, one, you're a human being. It's okay to fail. And two, if you're finding that you're constantly quitting on yourself, you just might need someone who needs support. You might be someone who needs coaching. You might be someone who needs a community of people, kind of like our inner circle, who are constantly just motivating each other. I mean, it's cool as hell to look on the app and to see them just comment on one another, push one another, and to celebrate one another. We all need that. We all need community. You know, I just posted a podcast the other day when Chris Flores, who jumped on our Men of Purpose podcast, was like, you know, your net worth is your network. And I think that's so fruitful. I mean, how many of us can relate to that? You know, when we have been in really, really great spaces, it's very likely that we are surrounded by other great people. And on the other end, when we've really struggled, it makes total sense that probably the people around us weren't the best people. And so we want to audit our environment too. So without further ado, like I said, I wanted to go into mine. So one thing that I challenge our inner circle members to do, and something that I'm constantly challenged to do, is to really navigate your self-talk. I've said this before, if you were to personify your negative self-talk, it's very likely that you wouldn't be friends with that person, because that person's an asshole. Okay. So it really matters how you talk to yourself. And so the way that I kind of start this is like, yo, Des, I am so proud of you. Like, I literally started this kind of just a bit more jokingly. It was like, yo, what's up, you bitch? And then I laughed, because that's just how I talk to myself. If I'm just being, you know, jovial and joking. And so I ran through some of the things, and the way that I split up my resolutions, or my intentions. I don't like to call them resolutions. I would say much more that they're intentions. But one of the things that I did is I separated my intentions through different value systems. And so one of those was health. The other one was relationships, because I think a core principle behind overall happiness is how heavily connected you are to your most important healthy relationships. Let me say that again. Healthy relationships. And then I did more of like my financial health, my cash flow, my business. And then I went into contribution. And so those are like the 4 pillars that I separated them with. And I kind of just wanted to give you some insight as to what I'm working on with our inner circle members and how it pertains to them, but much more so like what I'm navigating for myself and how I've broken that down and how I've asked for help in some of these different areas. So, right off the bat, one of the things that I really wanted to be much more intentional about was my nighttime routine. I think just with the change of times, like, I've been parenting way more than I ever thought was going to be possible, right? You know, working from home, my wife has to go in and to work, you know, thank God for her. So yeah, I'm home more. I'm parenting constantly. And so one of the I don't want to call it a bad habit. It's just something I've picked up. You know, right before bed, I'll throw a TV on, and I'll just be like, you know what? Like, when The Office was on, like, I'm going to throw on The Office right now and just kind of just chill and relax. So that's something that I was doing. And heading into this next year, something that I was like, you know what? Like, I actually want to be a bit more intentional about my nighttime routine. And so instead of telling myself like no more TV, what I did is I added in, like, you know what? Like, Des, congratulations, what you've been able to do with Rory, spending, you know, nighttime with her and being able to read to her has been so fruitful. And so by default, what I'm doing there is I'm etching in my brain an intention that I want, and a very, very specific task that I can complete, which is, oh, if you want to stop watching so much TV, go read to your daughter, which is going to help you guys be way more connected. It's going to help you to get to bed with better sleep hygiene. So that was like one of the big things that I looked at. One of the other things that I looked at too was my own nutrition. I mean, someone who is a registered dietitian working from home, there are times where I don't always get 3 to 4 meals out of the day. I might get 2, and I have to use my own tactics to make sure that I'm feeding myself well, it's balanced, and it's also enjoyable. I'm not a person who wants to like meal prep 7 days. That's just, to me, it just seems like literal hell. If you do it, by all means, keep doing it. I'm proud of you. That's just not me. And so what I wrote down here was like, hey, Des, I'm really, really excited for you. Dude, thank you so much for really being intentional about 3 meals, increasing your fiber in your meals from home, as well as your strength training regimen. And this is where the details are really big features. And this is kind of what I'm working on with a lot of our inner circle members. And so what I wrote down here was, dude, that nutrition regimen has really helped you to crush a 500-pound deadlift, a 400-pound back squat, and then you've crushed close to 10,000 steps daily. So there's details in there that I think I really want you guys to understand. So yeah, in the grand scheme of 500-pound deadlift or 400-pound back squat, I'm going to need programming for that. I'm going to need to invest in coaching for it, which is something that I do. And by default, because I need something like that, I'm going to have to be intentional about my sleep hygiene so that I can recover better. I'm going to have to be intentional about my protein intake. I'm going to have to do all of these things that someone as a professional, like, I already know how to do this. For yourself, this is why, like, I obviously, as a coach, coaches need coaches. I believe in teaching and in coaching. And so if you're finding yourself saying like, oh, this next year I want to lose 20 pounds, but if you don't know how to do it and you're still navigating things that you've been doing in the past and haven't been successful with it, you are choosing by default to not ask for help, and you are choosing to be in the same place. Okay. So I don't think that I could get to these lifts had I not invested in a coach, had I not invested in a lot of the education and a lot of the support that I have in order to be successful. I think another thing here too, and I just got to thank our inner circle for this. Like, each and every Sunday, we have our strength coach does a live Zoom workout with them. We've been doing that since the start of the pandemic. And on top of that, he does individualized programming for them. And so not only are they getting the nutrition side, but they're also getting the strength training side. It's like a damn one-stop shop. And I'm so happy to see that our inner circle are doing such really great things with this. It's the same thing with you. So as you reverse engineer some of these things, well, one is if you don't know how to do that, then it's very likely that you just need some clarity. It's very likely you need someone like myself, or even just other coaches in the world. I mean, I'm wearing one right now. Claire Tuning, another registered dietitian. She's freaking amazing, right? There are a ton of coaches out there to help you get to a point where not only are you getting to your goal, but you're also seeking fulfillment. Okay. So as we go down a little bit more, I kind of wanted to step into the relationship piece, because for me, it's something that even just in the pillars of our program, I'm really teaching people to lean into. So for me, the relationship one was, hey, like, celebrating like, Des, I am so proud of you, not only just from a fatherhood perspective, but what you've been able to do in your marriage, spending the time with your wife and being very intentional about at least the 15 to 20 minutes of just intentional conversation. Because I think that we can probably all raise our hand to this degree. Like, I think with everything that has gone on, especially for those that are working from home, possibly if you're a parent, there are things that are constantly going to be imbalanced, right? So if parenting is up here, your marriage is kind of down here, your self-care might be right here, or sometimes it's down here. I mean, even for me, like with this business, this beautiful business that I've grown in, this community that I am so thankful to have, sometimes like my clients are crushing it, business is great, and then my fatherhood is here. But then my self-care is like maybe here, and then marriage is down here. And it's just like a constant teeter-totter. So something that I wanted to be much more intentional about was, instead of like subtracting the things that I needed to stop doing, right, was adding things in. Hey, the 15 to 20 minutes of conversation. Hey, actually spending time with your wife, or actually spending time, intentional time with your daughter, is going to be so fruitful. And so those are areas to which, like, I thought to myself, like, all right, so the overall outcome is to create better connection with your wife, and also with your daughter. Okay. And so by doing so, like, you reverse engineer back and say like, okay, well, what is going to do that? All right. For me, it's not relative to anyone else in here. It might speak to you, it might not. But for me, it was like, okay, spending 10, 15, 20 minutes of intentional time with them, like, they are going to remember that. Right. And so that's how I kind of started to plan out my week. Okay. Now, as we're heading into some of the other areas, and I thought that it would be really cool to kind of talk a bit more about, was just even from the business side. I got some really cool things that are supposed to be happening this month. I got a new book that's being released with Men's Health, which I'm really excited about, which I consulted on. And I got some really cool video work. But I think one thing that I really wanted to be grounded in was to continue to empower you all with things that you want in your life. Right. And so that's why I kind of got the studio, because I was like, I really want the optics to be really cool. And so another thing that I wanted to be intentional about was doing better communication with you all. I mean, you've seen me reach into your DMs and you've seen me like, hey, how are things going? What do you need? How was your 2020? Things are crazy right now. Like, what do you need? I wanted to be much more intentional about those things and to provide that type of value, because one thing that I'm really grateful for is you all. I'm extremely grateful for you. And I'm extremely grateful for our inner circle, because what is cool about kind of where I sit and the optic to which I kind of observe things, I get to see a lot of you act out your most vulnerable tasks. We look at weight loss as a journey. We look at, muscle gain. We look at trying to navigate your self-care better. It's a vulnerable journey, because I tell this to our inner circle all the time. You didn't wake up one day not recognizing your body. You didn't wake up one day like, holy crap, my self-care is in the shitter. You didn't wake up one day like, oh my God, out of nowhere, like I'm going to have a nervous breakdown. Right? It took some time to get there. And in order to get out, we're trying to really lean into clarity with what you want out of your life. We're trying to lean into what you need. And so one thing that I was very intentional about in this letter is to be like, hey, like I really want to continue not only to grow this community, but to feel like I am the go-to person for this community. And so in a lot of ways, as I reach out to you, I want you to feel empowered to ask questions. I want you to feel empowered to get to a point where it's like, you know what, if I don't have the answer, like Des might, or he might be able to point me in the direction of someone who does, or even just reaching out to inner circle members, because I'm trying to, and I tell this all the time to them, like, yo, at the end of this program, like when I graduate you, like you're going to be a dietitian in your own home, but even better, like you're going to step out more authentically to who you want to be in your family. And if we're all doing that, let's be real. If we all are very intentional in the next year about how we want to live our lives, does our family not like, do our families or do our friends or even our communities, are they not successful because of you? Right? So kind of